The average gap between two people speaking is 0.2 of a second. Stretch that gap to 8 seconds in a negotiation, and the other side starts making concessions. Hold it for 12 seconds in a courtroom, and witnesses begin contradicting themselves. The psychology of silence in conversation is not about emptiness. It is about leverage, and the mechanisms behind it reveal something most people never consider about how conversations actually operate. Ordinary conversation is governed by a set of invisible timing rules. Linguists call these rules turn-taking, and the basic unit is the turn construction unit, TCU. Every utterance, whether a single word or a full sentence, contains a point where another speaker could take over. This is known as the transition relevance place, TRP. In English, the average gap between one speaker finishing and the next beginning is about 0.2 of a second, barely longer than a blink. That micropause is so brief that most people never notice it, yet it forms the backbone of conversational flow and timing. When a pause stretches beyond that 0.2 of a second norm, it stands out. Research using the Santa Barbara and Switchboard corpora finds that only a small fraction of turn transitions exceed 1 second. In these rare moments, listeners often experience discomfort or uncertainty. Longer gaps can trigger what conversation analysts call repair mechanisms. A speaker might backtrack, "Sorry, what I meant was," or a listener may jump in to clarify, "Did you mean?" These repairs are not just about fixing mistakes, they are responses to the social tension that arises when the expected rhythm breaks down. The precision of these timing rules explains why even a short silence can feel charged. A pause that lingers just half a second too long disrupts the conversational contract, prompting participants to search for hidden meaning or to rush in and fill the void. These microstructures of timing serve as the baseline against which all deliberate uses of silence are measured. Understanding this default rhythm is the first step toward recognizing how silence, when used intentionally, can reshape the entire dynamic of a conversation. A silent pause in conversation is rarely just empty space. The body often speaks as loudly as words during these moments. When someone chooses silence with steady posture and relaxed breathing, the effect can be quietly commanding. Shoulders remain open, arms rest without tension, and the eyes hold their focus, either meeting the listener's gaze or calmly fixed elsewhere. This kind of silence, paired with a measured, unhurried breath, signals control and composure. Listeners are more likely to interpret the pause as intentional, a sign of confidence rather than uncertainty. Contrast this with the silence that comes from anxiety. Here, the body betrays a different story. Fidgeting, tapping a foot, fiddling with a pen, or shifting in the seat often increases. The eyes dart or drop, avoiding contact for more than half the pause. Breathing becomes shallow or quick, sometimes visible in the rise and fall of the chest. Subtle gestures like rubbing the neck or tightening the jaw reveal inner tension. These markers shift the meaning of silence, turning a pause into a signal of discomfort or indecision. The difference is not just in stillness or movement, but in the quality of presence. Confident silence holds space with restraint, no rush to fill the air, no need for nervous reassurance. Anxious silence, by contrast, leaks through restless hands and averted eyes. By tuning into these cues, it becomes possible to read the intent behind a pause and to recognize when silence is being used as a deliberate tool rather than a retreat from the conversation. Inside a courtroom, the rules of conversation are more than social niceties, they become tactical instruments. During a 2022 U.S. fraud trial, a prosecutor fixed her gaze on the witness and allowed 12 seconds of silence to stretch between her question and the next word. The transcript records the pause in real time. Jurors shifted in their seats. The witness, who had appeared confident, began to fidget, glancing down and clearing his throat. No one in the room could ignore the tension. That single, unbroken silence forced the witness to fill the void, and when he finally spoke, his answer wavered. Legal analysts later noted that the pause did more to unsettle the testimony than any rapid-fire cross-examination could have achieved. High-stakes negotiation rooms operate under a similar logic, but with lives on the line instead of verdicts. Hostage negotiators are trained to use what the FBI calls calibrated silence. In a high-profile standoff in Rome in 2023, Negotiator Marco Rossi responded to a suspect's demand with an 8-second pause. The only sounds were distant sirens and the faint hum of a ventilation system. That silence, meticulously timed, allowed the suspect's adrenaline to ebb. The negotiator's stillness, no tapping, no nervous gestures, signaled patience and control. When the suspect broke the silence, his tone softened, and 3 hostages were released within the hour. FBI manuals cite these moments as proof that silence, when applied with intent, can de-escalate volatile situations and tip the balance toward cooperation. Whether in a courtroom or a crisis negotiation, silence is not just a gap between words. It is a lever for psychological pressure, a tool for shifting momentum. Those who understand how to wield it, timing their pauses for maximum effect, can change the outcome of the entire exchange. When the stakes are highest, it is often the person who says nothing who holds the most power. A therapist waits in silence, 5 seconds ticking by after a client's confession. In that pause, clients often reveal more, memories or realizations that would have stayed hidden if the conversation had rushed on. Research shows a 5-second therapeutic pause increases self-disclosure by nearly 25%. Therapists who hold this silence, steady and attentive, build trust that words alone rarely manage. In a job interview, silence takes on a sharper edge. When an interviewer lets 5 seconds pass after an answer, candidates often fill the gap, sometimes sharing more than they planned. Human resources professionals note these pauses uncover stories that scripted questions miss. But if the pause stretches too long, or the interviewer's face is unreadable, candidates may feel judged or dismissed, eroding the sense of fairness. Candidates respond to those cues. In couples therapy, the clock matters even more. A 10-second pause, with open body language, gives partners space to breathe and recover. But a 30-second silence, arms crossed, eyes averted, signals stonewalling, which Gottman's research links to distress and emotional shutdown. The difference between reflection and withdrawal can be measured in seconds. Cultural context shifts the meaning again. In a 1995 joint venture, a Japanese executive's 15-second pause was meant as respect. The American team, unaccustomed to such gaps, saw it as uncertainty. The misunderstanding nearly ended the deal. Edward T. Hall's model explains why, in some cultures, silence is thoughtful, and in others, it reads as incompetence or dissent. Even a 15-second pause can build bridges or raise barriers, depending on the conversational map in play. Silence, shaped by context and intention, can open doors or close them. Silence in conversation does more than pause the flow. It actively shapes the social landscape. When words stop, a social vacuum forms, and into that space listeners project meaning. The silent party gains leverage, not by force, but by letting others fill in the blanks. Studies in negotiation and therapy reveal that even a 3-second pause can prompt the other person to reveal more than they intended, or to offer concessions just to break the tension. This pressure is not random. It comes from the cognitive head start enjoyed by the one who remains silent. While the listener scrambles to interpret the gap, the silent speaker has already processed the exchange and is a step ahead, controlling the pace and direction of what comes next. The power of silence also depends on cultural scripts. In the United States and Germany, a long pause can signal dominance or assertiveness. In Japan, the same silence is often interpreted as respectful listening. Edward T. Hall's research on high and low context cultures shows that these differences are more than etiquette. They shape who is seen as strong, thoughtful, or uncertain. Across contexts, the one who controls silence often controls the narrative. Understanding these mechanisms reveals how something as simple as a pause can tip the balance of power in any conversation. Mastering silence in conversation begins with timing. Communication trainers often recommend the count to 5 rule. After a question or statement, silently count to 5 before responding. This pause feels longer than most people expect, but research shows it increases perceived authority and encourages the other person to elaborate. Practicing with drills, such as role-playing and counting down from 5 before answering, can help build comfort with these longer gaps. Pairing silence with open posture and steady breathing further signals calm intent, making the pause feel deliberate rather than awkward. Yet, silence is not a one-size-fits-all tool. In cross-cultural settings, a pause that feels powerful in the United States might be misread as indecision or disrespect in Japan or Germany. A quick checklist is, who am I speaking with? What are their cultural norms? These questions can prevent costly misunderstandings. Legal guidelines also matter. In the workplace, prolonged or targeted silence, especially when used to isolate or exclude someone, has been cited in harassment and retaliation cases under EEOC policy. Studies reveal a gender bias. Women are more likely to be judged as uncertain when silent, while men are seen as thoughtful. For professionals, the safest approach is to use silence as an invitation, not a weapon. When in doubt, break the pause with a clarifying remark or an open-ended question. The goal is to create space, not discomfort. In an age defined by constant noise, silence stands as a rare instrument of influence. Research shows even a 3-second pause can shift outcomes in negotiations or therapy. Those who master silence hold a subtle power, because in every conversation, what is not said often speaks loudest. Share your thoughts below.